welcome back for another episode of Coffee with Mare. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about, and sorry, I have a runny nose, so, and allergies, so forgive me. Okay, today I wanted to share with you some of my experiences around the guilt that comes with chronic illness. And you know, it's hard for some people to wrap their head around just how much guilt starts to play a part in your life, especially at the onset of a long-term chronic illness, when you still have that sense of maybe this is temporary, maybe it'll only last a week, or maybe it'll be a month, and then everything will be better. When you're in the situation that I am in, where it's been an on and off struggle between different flares of different illnesses over a span of 10 years, and pretty consistently 10 years, there's a lot of stuff that shows up. And some of that comes from things that you have on the inside and that you feel incomplete about, or that you feel like you should. There's still a lot of should and a lot of guilt language at the beginning. And now I can honestly say the place that I'm in right now, I'm in a much, much better place. Ooh, and I'm warm. Sorry, I just got all ready for bed and had a quick shower, which is amazing considering the day that I had, that I still had enough energy and spoons for that at the end of the day. But so if I'm looking a little sweaty, it's because it's toasty. I feel toasty right now. Anyhow, having to do with guilt, and the longer you end up being ill without any sight of it's almost like no sight of land anywhere. So there's no reprieve in sight. It's really something that I wrestled with for a really long time. And I'm talking about the things that were normal activities for me, things that I enjoyed doing, like organizing my house. You know, the sicker you are, the less you seem to have energy for those things that are just kind of, you know, beyond the basic feeding yourself and sleeping and making sure that you are implementing some kind of self-care during the day so that you don't feel terrible at the end of the day. Beyond that, I mean, I've moved a few times in the last 8 or 9 years, and the unpacking has never reached a true level of completeness or doneness, I guess. And I learned to be okay with that. I have people who have serious issues in my life with clutter and all of that. And, you know, I've had some people judge me pretty harshly over the years. And it was very interesting to have those experiences, you know. And there's one scenario in particular where somebody that I knew came over to my house and we had some work to do, and they saw that there were still boxes unpacked, and that we were, I guess we'd been in that place for close to a year at that point, and it was this nothing but judgment. Like, you know, oh my goodness, how can you leave boxes like that? How can you have any clutter? How good is that for your child? You know, there's no way to pretty up that kind of commentary from someone. And, you know, my daughter and I have always had very open conversations about the amount of spoons, or the amount of energy, if you're not familiar with the spoon theory. But the amount of energy that mommy has to do even the littlest things, beyond making sure that we have breakfast and that we eat our meals and that she got to school on time and that she, you know, bathed regularly and all of the essential stuff that needed to get done. So when I have somebody come into my home, into my sanctuary, and start essentially accusing me of more or less being a pack rat, and yeah, that was pretty tough. That was tough to take, and I'm very lucky that that person was not really in my inner circle, even though that person was in the health and coaching space at that point in their career. I was actually very surprised by the comments that came so freely. And it was very clear that when they're in an environment that has some stuff in it and that it's not neatly organized and not everything is in its place, that there was some anxiety coming up. And I could see that anxiety bubbling the further the afternoon went when we were spending time together trying to accomplish a few things. So I had to really evaluate those statements and go, am I putting my child in harm's way? Am I being a bad mother? Am I just useless because I can't really work anymore and that I barely have the energy to do even the most basic things? So if all of you or any of you have experienced any of that, you can understand what that felt like. To have somebody come into your home and essentially attack the way that you're living out of necessity. And that's something where took a lot of work to get past that one. And I'm not talking about a lot of work unpacking. I had to unpack the statements that were said to me because I did not have the physical energy. Like my body was literally falling apart at that point, and I could hardly do any lifting. I could barely get out of bed most days. I was starting to have migraine cycles that were lasting longer and longer. And I was just doing whatever I could to reserve my energy. Whatever that was, I gave it all to my child. So, you know, it's not a question of comparing your energy to someone else's when you're that sick. It is, what does your 100% look like? And I really truly believe that you cannot compare yourself to anyone else, whether you're the healthy person and they are the person with the illness, or vice versa, until you have walked a mile in their shoes and that you really can put yourself in a place of empathy and understanding where they are. You know, I just say don't judge. You know, it's not, don't judge me until you know this, this, and this. That's just creating a story around the situation that you have, as opposed to just saying, don't judge. And I try really hard to live by that. I try. I'm not perfect, okay? But that's something I've been striving for. And that I really recommend that, you know, people look at the language that they're choosing to use to create their world and their friendships and their relationships, and see how much guilt language there is in there. See how much of that language has expectations that were never actually created except for in perhaps your very own mind. And I know that I have also had that happen to me, where I've had to really go, you know what? That wasn't an expectation that was ever clearly stated by either party. So for me to have an expectation that that is going to be accomplished is a little bit unreasonable. And that's also where, when you're judging a person for not living up to your expectations, that kind of falls on you, unless it's an expectation that's been agreed upon by both parties, that that is the goal that you're after. So judgment and guilt, they go hand in hand. They're like BFFs. One's never far from the other. So I also, in that situation with that particular individual, had to try really hard not to judge them, because they were coming at me with language that was very much an expectation of what they would be doing in their home if they were in my situation. And first of all, that person was not a parent. And second of all, that person's never walked a mile in my shoes. May have had their own very valid journey, but very, very different. So completely different experiences in life. And from the time I met that person, tried to imagine what it must have been like for them to walk their walk through their lives to get to where they were by the time we got to know each other. I did not feel that that was reciprocated. That's a fact. That's what my feelings were. And that's not a judgment on that person. That's just where they were at that point in their life, and that they really didn't know how to express themselves in any other way than with that language. So yeah, and you know, that's a very particular, specific example that kind of highlights the sort of guilt that can come into your world when you are chronically ill, and that you don't do things the way other people do because you can't. So, you know, vacuuming twice a week, vacuuming is actually one of the most difficult activities for your back. My chiropractor and I talked about that once or twice when I'd overdone it doing steam cleaning and vacuuming and all of that kind of stuff. And, you know, so I started vacuuming when I was able to. And occasionally I would have friends who would come and give me a hand. And of course, anytime my mom comes to visit, my poor mom, God bless her, she just wants to be of service and be useful, and she is in more ways than she even realizes. My mom is an inspiration to me, and she is my biggest cheerleader in life still to this day. She's 80 years old, and just I know that she's not there judging me. She's doing what she can to help in the only way that she knows how, or the best way that she knows how. So I love her for that, you know. And yeah, we've had some conversations where it's like, Mom, you know what? I can't really think about the stuff that I would like to get accomplished today because my brain is not processing very well. Like trying to organize thoughts when you have severe brain fog, when I've talked and I've spoken to that before, it can be difficult to even come up with a laundry list of things that you would like to have someone do to help you. So it's not cut and dried. It's not like you have this list of responsibilities that need to get done around your house. I really despise the word chores. I was not raised with the word chores, and I really believe that, you know what, if you think it's a chore, it's going to be a chore. So if you look at the things you're responsible for in your house, that's the way I look at it. And there's priorities. You know, garbage needs to get done. Dishes need to get done. Making sure that you have groceries in the house, making sure there's fuel in the vehicle. And at that point, I still had a dog, so I needed to make sure that my dog was fed and happy and let out and brought back in the house whenever he needed. So, you know, and plus raising a child, like a elementary school level child. So that was already a lot on my plate. And after we had moved into that particular house that we were renting for a few years, when we first moved in there, I was still feeling pretty good. But within 6 to 8 months, that's when the crash came. And I was flat out working way too much at that point. So it's not like I really put a lot of effort into unpacking beyond the make sure our rooms are unpacked, make sure the kitchen is unpacked. We know where most of our stuff is, and we can find the box if we need it, and we'll just kind of get to it when we get a chance to. And that's even having people coming over to help me do little bits of unpacking. It was a very challenging time, and I put a lot of guilt on myself because I would, you know, barely be able to walk around this 1,000 square foot house that we were living in. It was tiny. And you know, walking from my bathroom to my bedroom. That was kind of the extent of my walk during the day, especially on days where my child was at her dad's for the week and that I didn't really have any commitments or doctor's appointments, which there were multiple doctor's appointments a week sometimes, and that I just needed to rest. So I had to wrestle with the guilt. I had to wrestle with looking at the boxes and looking at all of the bags of stuff and learn to be okay with the fact that my house wasn't perfect and that I couldn't even try to fake being Martha Stewart anymore. You know, I've always loved having, you know, a place for everything in its place. And the sicker I got, the less of that was happening, and I would just see like, oh my god, it's just in a disarray, there's stuff all over the place, that's not where I want it, and I don't have the energy to move it somewhere else, so it's just got to stay where it is. So if you can relate to any of that, whether you've been through something like that or whether you have people that are in your life now who are experiencing something like that, if you've already been through it, you can probably dig up a really great level of empathy for the situation that they're in and, you know, reflect back to them, hey, listen, your most important job right now is taking care of yourself and trying to get well. And that's where your focus ought to be as much as possible, right? And there are people who have been in way worse situations than, like, I was very, very ill, but I know people who have gone through worse, yet we can't compare each other because our lives are totally different and our illnesses are totally different and how they affect our bodies, it's not the same. So I'm very, very careful when I do, you know, if I do go over to somebody's house and it's kind of a cluttery sort of mess and there's just crap everywhere, you know, I'm usually the first one to throw out a self-deprecating remark like, oh no, you should see ground zero at my place. It looks like a bomb went off. And I can laugh about it now. Before I used to say that and it was just like this kind of wry sort of feeling where it's like, I know I should be doing something about it. And until the shoulds walked out of my life, I felt guilty. And now I look at my place and I know there are still people who come over for the first time and are like, wow, still not unpacked, eh? And I just laugh about it now. Whatever I do unpack, I try and do it very mindfully, just so you're aware. So I'm doing a double duty where it's decluttering and unpacking boxes at the same time. And so we have reduced the amount of stuff dramatically in the last few years, and I'm very, very proud of that. However, some people may choose to tackle that in a different way, get the boxes unpacked, and then go through and do a second declutter. I don't have the energy to do the work twice. So I'm just trying to do it once. I open the box, I have a look at it, I see if there's stuff in there that needs to be used now or if it can be used now, and then sort of assess, okay, do we need to keep the rest of this stuff? And there's so much that has gone in the recycling and donation bins and in the garbage that I do feel a lot lighter as far as the volume of stuff that we have, but it's still not completely organized. Well, today, my daughter and I did spend some time doing some organizing because I did have some energy and it was great. We really did a lot of stuff. And okay, people, I know it's March. It's March. We just took down, like finished taking down our Christmas tree and put it away in the storage today. That's what I'm talking about, where things don't happen on anybody else's timeline but our own. It's March and we just took the tree down. And you know what? I'm very proud of that because we actually got the rest of it down and put away. And I was having a difficult time. I did have energy, but I was feeling just from having to be hunched over and putting things into boxes and grabbing things from the bottom of the Christmas tree, I was actually having a lot of lightheadedness, so I had to take a lot of breaks. And my daughter was wonderful, and she helped in those moments and was, you know, always there with a hug and a smooch to encourage me. And Mama, it's okay, you rest. You need to take a minute, so you just rest, okay, Mom? And she's just, oh, she's amazing. She's such a good, just amazing. I can't even tell you. But we got it done. And then we even managed to move forward on some other stuff, like reorganizing our living room a little bit and rearranging some of the smaller pieces of furniture that just needed to be put in a better position. And now we have so much more flow going through our living room, and it's great. And we also reset the easel so that it's in a space where we can start doing some painting, because both my daughter and I love to paint. So we've got our easel and our art supplies ready to go so that we can just kind of pick up a brush and a canvas and go for it when we feel like it. So, and then on top of that, we pulled out some sewing stuff and we got working on a little crafting sewing project that my daughter's been wanting to do with me for a very long time. And she pulled it out of her little sewing box today and said, Mama, do you think we could work on this today? And I said, yeah, okay. We didn't get it finished, and the light in our place is fabulous during the day, but in the evening it gets very dark in our living room, even with lamps on. So I said, can we finish this tomorrow, please? And she looked at me and she said, yeah, we can do that. So she's being very, very patient. So patient. For 11 years old, she's really remarkable. She's still 11 years old though. I mean, she's at that 11 going on 16 and 17 some days. But you know what? She's got a very compassionate heart, and I'm very grateful for that. Yeah, so it was a big day. It was a big day, and we even had like a visit this morning with some really good friends of ours. So it's been a full day, and I don't know if it's just the coffee that kicked in after this morning or what, but my head's actually pretty clear. It's clearer now than it was a few hours ago, and I'm feeling tired, but I'm feeling good, and I'm not having that much pain today, which was such a bonus because I did have to move around, like, you know, Rubbermaid bins and some crafting stuff, and we got it done. You know, my storage room is in a complete disaster state at the moment because we had to pull a whole bunch of stuff out to get out the sewing stuff that we needed. But tomorrow, I might just be able to tackle organizing my storage room, which is something I've wanted to do since I moved in. And we've been here for like a year and a half. So having patience with yourself is the best advice I can give anybody, to really look at your situation. Look at it from an objective perspective, okay? Not from the guilt that you might be feeling or feeling that you wish that you could be doing stuff that you can't, because you know that you can't right now. You know what your limitations are, and it's really smart to listen to that, because the more you overdo it, the sicker you will likely get. And that will not help your recovery wherever you are, whether you are in remission from an illness or you've just had a flare ending, you know, or that you are just kind of learning to deal with chronic illness. Be kind to yourself, be patient. And it doesn't all have to get done today. It doesn't even all have to get done tomorrow. You know, if you're still clinging to the notion of perfection and having everything be perfect right now, you're in for a whole lot of heartache, my friend. Don't do it. You know, just take it one moment at a time. And what I started doing over the years was I would try and rehome one thing. I would find one thing that is out of place and I would try and find a home for it. You know, so if I ended up with stuff that had been put in my living room that needed to go in my bedroom, or it needed to go in the bathroom, then I would just, you know, take that one thing and put it in its home. If you're just tackling one small thing a day, then, and even if you can't do it every day, it's okay. You know, I'm asking you to give yourself permission to take the time that you need, not on anybody else's timeline, okay? So it's not always easy, and it's my daughter and I. There's nobody else living with us, and I haven't had partner, spouse, roommates in the last few years. It's just been myself, my daughter, and my dog when he was still alive. It's different when you are coupled or if you have roommates, and I really understand that there's different expectations that just kind of end up being made, you know. And it's like, okay, well, we have our rotation for cleaning the house, or we have, you know, oh, it's your week to do this or your week to do that. If your health is starting to slide and you really don't feel that you can stay on top of it, instead of not doing it and not saying something, maybe you need to reset the expectation. Having the conversation with your roommates or your partner, whoever it may be, even if it's your kids, if you have grown-up kids that are living with you and that you find yourself doing less and less, talk with them. Ask them for their understanding and their patience, and hopefully you have really good people in your life that are going to say, don't worry, we got this. But what they need to realize is that don't worry, we got this, you can't just mean it for a month. If you're going to be living under the same roof, they need to understand that this could be for a long time. We're talking 10 years of pretty consistent chronic illness that I've gone through, and I was still living with my partner at the beginning of that journey. And it was very challenging because we had very different levels of what could get done around the house. Especially as our relationship was ending, I was quite ill for a few years, and I felt like I wasn't able to contribute as much in the, you know, doing stuff around the house and doing yard work, which normally I don't have issues with. I enjoy gardening. I like being outside in the sun, and all of those things became next to impossible for me because my body couldn't handle it. So life is messy and it can be really complicated, but try not to overcomplicate it yourself. Keep it simple. Try and follow a simple routine, you know, making sure that you have really good sleep, that you're drinking enough water and you're hydrating, especially if you have to take a large volume of medication. You do need extra water to help you flush all of that through your system, and, you know, and spending time with people who understand where you're at so that you feel supported. Those are things that I find are very valuable. And if you can find a way to implement that in your life, if you don't already have it, that's something that can only help you in the long run. So I always welcome your comments, and, you know, I'm here to chat if you are having some difficulties with this, or you just don't know how to word things when you're talking with people that are starting to learn about your chronic illness and don't quite understand how challenging your life has become. I can help you with that. You know, we can kind of find a way that you can communicate that with your language that you are comfortable with, so that people can kind of get a better idea. I also understand that there's a lot of anger. I was very angry when I first got sick because, you know, I had things show up on and off my whole life, but I was really angry. I was angry with myself. I was angry with my body. I felt like my body had completely betrayed me. And I think we'll have to do another segment of that on a different episode, because the anger is definitely a part of grieving, and your grieving may not just happen once on your chronic illness journey. It can happen multiple times over different things at different periods of time, and you can also grieve to different depths. So we'll get more into that another day. Please make sure that if you like this video, which I hope you did, give us a big thumbs up and subscribe. Just hit that button down below, and then don't forget to hit the bell as well so that you know exactly when the next videos are landing on YouTube. So for tonight, I really hope you all get some rest, and I thank you so much for joining me. So it's SickMom checking out.